I could work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and not come close to meeting the need that we have in this neighborhood in terms of providing mental health services.
I think the greater tragedy is that borderline personality disorder is actually highly treatable.
Being very sensitive emotionally takes a lot of strength.
Everyone else is born with this like book of tricks, and like I have to learn it. Like why didn't I get born with that?
What moves do I make to get out of this prison? If I know the answers, why isn't it working? Who will help me? Who?
We should shine a light on.
And when I will draw something that is really accurately representative of all the pain associated with borderline personality disorder, I'll be in a state of either such turmoil or heightened emotion that drawing just feels like a way to get it out of me and onto paper. And the same with writing. I think they both serve a very similar purpose in terms of what they do for me to release emotion.
So people who have borderline personality disorder, they may be very high functioning and doing well in many regards in life, but when their stress level hits a certain point, there is a tendency to become dysregulated in emotions, which people with borderline personality disorder experience really very intensely. There's dysregulation in the realm of behavior, where people with borderline personality disorder will do things that are reckless and self-destructive, including suicidal or self-harming behavior. There's dysregulation in relationships, where relationships will become just as extreme as the emotions and the behaviors. And lastly, there are problems in both identity and thoughts. So some people will feel really lost and empty, not know what they want or what they feel when they're really under a lot of stress. Borderline personality disorder is actually, among the severe mental illnesses, fairly common, more prevalent than bipolar disorder and schizophrenia.
Since leaving McLean and coming down here to work at Boston Medical Center, I've seen a lot of the problems in the disparity in treatment in populations that are more upper middle class versus folks in poverty. In a neighborhood like this one, you're looking at a lot of poverty, homelessness, single parent households, foster care, incarceration.
It's also highly stigmatized among professionals in mental health. And there was a New York Times Magazine article that said that the two most stigmatized diagnoses in all of medicine by healthcare professionals are obesity and borderline personality disorder.
People are afraid to treat borderline because they don't know what they're doing. If you don't know what to do, right, it can be really hard, just like it would be if you're trying to treat someone with bipolar disorder and you don't know what to do, right? Give them the skills, right, and they get some confidence about what they're doing.
Because a lot of professionals think it is negative and pejorative to give a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, they'll oftentimes just avoid doing it.
Listening to what different doctors had to say, like, oh no, you're not BPD, no, you're not borderline, like, psh, I see borderline people every day and they're just all like psycho and drama. And then it became this kind of thing where it's like, if I'm diagnosed with BPD, that means I'm like a fucking psycho lunatic. I had such a difficult time of being at home and was dealing with so much suicidal ideation. I mean, most of the time I just thought about how am I going to kill myself. Like, I can't fucking stand this anymore. Nothing's working. I'm going to a psychiatrist, I'm going to the therapist, and nothing was working. And I was entertaining the thought of dying more and more every single day, and it just seemed like, what other option is there? Like, I don't have anything right now that I want to live for. Being in the hospital that time was when I knew, and my parents knew, and my psychiatrist there knew something had to change. this is not gonna work. I can't just go back home. I'm gonna keep going in and out of the hospital or I'm gonna be dead. My mother had done some research on different treatment programs, and she remembered that, you know, people had been diagnosing me with BPD. She found this residential treatment through McLean. It's the Gunderson residence. I learned a lot in the residence. I could feel like killing myself. I could feel so sad that I just don't want to be around anymore, or I'm so angry that I want to like punch a hole in the wall, or, you know, hurt myself in some way. And I have the choice to not do that and to do something else that's in my best interest. So I've actually learned how to just really take care of myself, and by doing that, and at first I felt like it was very forced, like I don't want to take care of myself, I don't really feel like I deserve it, I feel so horrible about myself, I hate myself, that kind of thing. And I did that for so long that at this point it's like, hey, I'm okay with myself.
The clinician can help the person with borderline personality disorder first realize the nature of their difficulties and then organize the way that they manage themselves through their relationships and their kind of self-regulation or coping, so that they can optimize their strengths and, you know, minimize their vulnerabilities to reach their goals in life. Ultimately, treatment should be aimed to help people get a life that they feel rewarded by and kind of actualized by. And that's the process by which people find a lot of healing and therapy.
When I first got clean, I thought, oh, okay, I have a problem with drugs, but it was so much more than that, because once I got the diagnosis with borderline, every single thing in my life started to make sense. The doctor that diagnosed me, she listed off the symptoms, and I was like, yep, to like almost all of them. And it was amazing to know that I wasn't totally insane, that there was a name for the things that I had done. I go to an intensive outpatient program at McLean called the Gunderson Outpatient Program for people with borderline in Belmont, Massachusetts. The treatment there involves group therapy, therapists, other like outside structure like having a job, and applying the skills that we learn there out in the real world. My life before treatment, I was addicted to heroin. I hated myself. I hated everyone. Life was miserable, and it was slavery. This is a picture of me before treatment. I was using substances to cope with everything that was going on in my life. You can see that I'm really skinny. I wasn't eating. I was just doing drugs. And the way my life is now, I mean, I don't blow up at friends like I used to. I don't do drugs when someone upsets me either like I used to. And I can see other people in treatment and not in treatment, and I can look at their behaviors, and it's very like self-reflective, I guess, just seeing how I used to be like that and understanding the way other people work more too, and not just seeing everyone else as the enemy and black and white thinking, stuff like that.
Crocheting is one of my skills that I use as a grounding technique. With every stitch that I do, it keeps me where my feet are.
And like in my recovery, all the time I get judgmental, self-critical thoughts, which I think is also part of borderline. And if I'm not too far, like, stressed out, I'm able to, like, question those thoughts and turn them around. And when customers are yelling at me because they're acting like I killed their firstborn by ruining their coffee, I constantly tell myself, like, they're having a bad day, I did the best I could, and it does not make me a bad person. Like, I think that these are things that people struggling with borderline have to tell themselves all the time. Coming to treatment has absolutely saved my life.
The laws of demand and supply have driven up the price of these treatments. So oftentimes they're really only available in really kind of exclusive and expensive settings like a specialty program like ours. Because of the way that insurance works, they don't commonly reimbursed for this diagnosis, even though there is evidence that biologically it's valid, reliable, and a coherent diagnosis. So those people who don't have really not just money, but a significant amount of money, can oftentimes not find the treatments that work, nor afford the treatments that work for the disorders. There is a problem of access to care.
One woman that I think of in particular who goes from bad boyfriend to bad boyfriend because she has such a need to connect and has real financial and security issues that are real because she's homeless, right? Because she can't stop using drugs. And then when that's not working, we'll turn to prostitution, where you're already poor and uneducated. If you're quick to anger and cannot control your rage, you wind up in jail. You don't wind up in a psych hospital, right? You wind up being incarcerated, which then makes the problem even worse. The people with borderline personality disorder got better, right? That there was treatment that worked. You could treat people and improve their lives greatly. Even in some sense, if the kind of treatment that someone with borderline personality disorder would need was available, it's hard to get to it when you're starting out with, how's the housing going? Are you still in the shelter? Right? Did you have enough to eat today? Right? Can you get to the food bank today? You know, when basic needs aren't being met, it often feels like any kind of treatment is a luxury. I think that one of the things that would need to happen in order to help with the disparity that we see in treatment, particularly with folks with borderline personality disorder, is to give more recognition to the diagnosis of borderline personality disorder.